So, do we have a biblical example? Do we have a biblical example? And I would agree with Bob Yans that we don't. The issue with the cross-gender counseling and the statistics they present here, these are interesting. I find them somewhat interesting, but I don't camp on them and I don't make a big deal out of them. Particularly if you're going to get into a discussion with somebody, all right? Now tonight I think we're pretty friendly in this room, that we might have by and large some like-mindedness and some common thinking. There could be somebody else that would come in here and actually 12 minutes ago I lost them. They're just living with me right now, okay? Maybe because of the joke I made about men and women not communicating or whatever, okay? So let's just try to keep it in the text. When you come with a study like this, why do boys like trucks and girls like dolls, and different brain studies? Let me tell you something. Every brain study you can point to, the leftists are going to have another brain study they can point to as well. They're going to tell you that women are no different than boys. Okay, girls are no different than boys, and women are no different than men, and they think the same way, which I think is just ludicrous at face value. But, see, they're the PhD experts, and they've done their studies, and they've got their evidence, and they've got their proof, and you're not going to convince them anyway. So, to me, these were the least valuable portions of the text. To me, it was much better just keep it with the Bible, keep it with the text. The studies are interesting and kind of no surprise to me. But there it is. It is interesting, though, that when they do their imaging studies and when they scan to try to see what parts of the brain are activating, you realize they don't even know. I mean, they think they know. They can measure electrical impulses. They can measure electrical activity. And they can say, wow, for men, it's this part of the brain that sure gets excited. And with women, it's this part of the brain that's getting excited. And they're doing similar activity, language skills, logic skills, reasoning, other things. And they're finding that we're wired differently. Different parts of the brain are getting excited at different times and doing different things. Anyway, shouldn't be a big shock to anybody that we think differently. Male versus female brains, his brain, her brain. I thought some of this was kind of like, duh. How long does it take to figure that out? Day 2 of your honeymoon, right? And hopefully you figured it out actually before your wedding. But you have kids, you have boys and you have girls. They think differently. They act differently. And it's not because of social engineering. We've forced them artificially into these roles. That's by birth, by nature, by constitution. Intrinsically, that's who we are. Get past some of these studies here. All right. Problem-centered counseling provides an environment in which these female feelings and thoughts can easily be misunderstood or not understood at all in cross-gender counseling. If the counselor is a male and the woman is complaining about A, B, C, and D because her husband is whatever, and she's got this long list of A, B, C, and D. In many cases, the male counselor will be listening to everything this woman says, and what's going through his mind? What's wrong with A, B, C, and D? Right? Because that's how he thinks. He's a male. Okay? Or if it's a female counselor and the man is talking about F, G, H, and I. And why can't she figure out why he's so hung up over this? Okay? So the men are going to be patterned after the men, the women patterned after the women. I mean, what are you truly solving? And the worst thing is, what was the mythology we studied last week? This idea that by talking it out, we're going to find a solution. This idea that their training gives them insight and the ability to sift to the real issues, the ability to find the core remedies. And their training provides no such thing. The heart is deceitful above all else, desperately wicked, who can know it? no matter the training, they don't have the answers. And what's the goal anyway? Are we trying to fix problems, make them go away? Is that why people go to counseling? Is that what God would have for us to do in our testing? See, testing is common to man so that you may be able to endure, but why does he test us? Why did Jesus learn with his suffering? What is it we're supposed to learn in our suffering? So all of these are questions that, again, I think the world's approach to what people go to counseling for, it just falls so short. All right, so we get past all of those studies and all of the rest of that stuff, and he finally gets to the scriptures, and where does he take us? He takes us to 1 John chapter 2. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life. And the problem of what happens when carnality starts taking over in the counseling session. And when slander starts happening, gossip starts happening, people start learning about things, and then they want to know more. And in most of these cases, we're learning details that we just don't need to know. All right, we're learning information that we would be better off not knowing. And when you're talking about the cross-gender counseling, and the male counselor is learning very intimate stuff and very private, personal matters, does he have any business knowing any of that? Where is that taking his mind? And then the male mind's going to run to bad places all on its own anyway without feeding it with extra stuff. All right? The female mind is going to go places that it doesn't need to go. Just in its own carnality. It doesn't need to be fed. And this is where trouble comes in. The statistics they gave, did you read through there? Did you see the number of counselors that get involved in sexual affairs with their patients? All right. And beyond the ones that actually literally go through with it, how many are fantasizing about it, thinking about it? Right? The numbers are astronomical. He talks as a male counselee, she responds as a female counselor. Or she talks as a female counselee, he responds as a male counselor. And so what are we truly accomplishing in all of this? Well, let me take you to a scripture tonight. Titus chapter 2. And then as we have time, we'll come back to 1 Timothy 5. You've got to be very, very careful in the local church. But Titus chapter 2. As for you, speak the things which are fitting for sound doctrine. Speak the things which are fitting for sound doctrine. We're going to get to this when we get to the later chapters, when we get to the start ministering portion. But he's hinted at it a couple of times already. The necessity of hearing about it is not necessary. You can give biblical encouragement and not know a thing about what they're struggling with. You don't have to know the details. In fact, you don't even have to know, other than just in general terms, that there's a problem. And say, I'm facing discouragement. Or my discouragement's related to my relationship. All right, fine, I don't want it anymore. All right, I can pray for that. I can speak to that. I can give you divine viewpoint related to that. I can give you scriptures that will point you towards stability. And let's just start growing. Let's start occupying with Christ. Let's start bearing fruit. Let's not dwell on problems because that violates Scripture. And let's not slander and gossip because that poisons my heart if I hear any of that. So as for you, speak the things which are fitting for sound doctrine. Older men, are they important in the church? You bet they're important in the church. And how many older men do you have there? Doesn't say. There's no number given. But whoever they are, they're going to have a role to play. And you don't need to sit in a room and spill your guts to any of them. You don't need to pay them. This is their function. And when they were your age, they had older men that fulfilled this function in that generation. And someday, you're going to be the older man in your generation. There'll be younger guys looking at you. So this is how it works. Is Titus expected to do everything in this local church? No. He's expected to speak the things that are fitting for sound doctrine. He's expected to coordinate and show leadership and designate these older men, these older women, these younger men, these younger women. To provide the leadership that supervises this activity. Older men are to be temperate, dignified, sensible, sound in faith and love and perseverance. In other words, they're walking according to the will of God. They're walking according to Scripture. They're setting the example. They're modeling the Christian way of life. And do they have to listen to you hour after hour after hour, moaning and complaining about everything that's going wrong? They're modeling the Christian way of life, and you're watching them. You're watching them. And I find it interesting because they're not commanded to teach the younger men. They're commanded to live and set the example.